Hey everybody, welcome back to Football Talk with Vinny. In today's video, we're going to go over the Week 13 power rankings. Now obviously I didn't do last week's video, I was a little sick. Just didn't really feel good, and a couple days went by the time I felt better. It's already the Thanksgiving game, so I just figured I'll just skip that week and just do it next week. With that, let's get right into it. Obviously things have changed in the last 2 weeks, but not really at the bottom. So at 32, we're still going to have the Detroit Lions. 31, still the Houston Texans. At 30, I put the Jacksonville Jaguars. At 29, we have the New York Jets, obviously after beating the Houston Texans. Bears at 28, just a really bad football team. Obviously now with the injury to Justin Fields, the season is completely lost at this point. 27 of Seattle, obviously lost a game that definitely a winnable game last night. And their chances to reach the postseason is pretty much gone at this point. If they had won, they would only be, I believe, a game and a half, maybe 2 games back. But now with the loss, they're 3 games back with 6 to go. Probably not likely. At 26, the Falcons, although record-wise, they are ahead of a bunch of other teams that I have ranked just below them. Just their point differential is so bad. And just when they play the good teams, they get blown out by such huge margins that, maybe okay because they have a more veteran quarterback. When they play the bad teams, the really, really bad teams like Jacksonville, they can win. But when they go up against even average to good teams, they usually get crushed. Panthers at 23, obviously probably the most disappointing team of what I've picked in terms of to make the playoffs. Obviously they started 3-0, but at this point they've lost, I think, 7 of their last 9. So obviously their season's close to over now. Their schedule's pretty tough towards the end of the season. So if they don't start winning some games in the next 2 weeks, they're pretty much going to be out of the playoff race. 24, I'm going to have the Washington football team, although they did get a win. Again, I don't think Seattle's that great of a team anymore. So, I don't want to really overreact to a very, very narrow victory against a bad football team at home. Number 23, we're going to have the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, they've won now, I believe, 4 straight games. That is fantastic for a Cowboys fan. You might be thinking, why is that great if you're a Cowboys fan? It's because the Philadelphia Eagles have the Miami Dolphins first-round draft pick this year. So 5 weeks ago, that was a top 3 pick. Now it's starting to get outside the top 10, which, again, as a Cowboys fan, I'm absolutely ecstatic about that. But as for Miami, the win streak's probably a little too late. The AFC obviously has just better teams, more depth at least in terms of the wild card race in the NFC. So with 4 wins with Miami, I believe it's 4 or 5 wins, they're still 2 or 3 back with 3 to play. If they had 4 wins in the if they had 4 wins in the NFC, they would only be like 2 games back, from the wild card. 22, the Giants, obviously going to move them up about 5 spots. Obviously, it's mainly because of the win against the Philadelphia Eagles. Also, they are getting healthy. Kenny Golladay played. He had Saquon Barkley play as well. So they're starting to get healthy. Obviously, they're going to have to probably win 4 of the next 6 or 5 of the next 6 in order to make the postseason. So they've dug themselves a deep hole, kind of like Miami. But because they're in the NFC, they're a little lucky in the sense of, right now I think Washington is the 7th seed at 6-6. Number 21, the Philadelphia Eagles. I didn't want to rank the Giants ahead of them because, again, I don't like to overreact to one specific game. Philly was on an impressive win streak of the last couple weeks. Obviously, had a letdown game where you just offense played very poorly against albeit a good defense in the New York Giants. But that loss really hurts them for the wild card race. At number 20, down 6 spots, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've been saying it all along, even though their record, they were in the top 10 for most of the first half of the season. Again, their point differential is negative still, and they were the only team in that top 10 or 12 in terms of overall record a couple weeks back that had a negative point differential. And over the course of the season, that will not play out. You will not be able to consistently win ball games when you're being outscored on the season. Number 19, the Saints, no movement there. Obviously, they did get a loss on Thanksgiving, but you played a very good Buffalo team without Alvin Kamara. So don't want to really overreact to that. They're kind of in that playoff race at this point where if they can get a win or 2, if their defense can get back to playing as good as it was playing in the beginning of the season, they can still make the playoffs. Number 18, Cleveland Browns, didn't want to overreact to that loss as well. You lost a very narrow game to a good Baltimore Ravens team. So again, if you're Cleveland, of course, at this point now at 6-6, you're going to have to start winning some ball games over the last 6 weeks of the season. Again, you might have to win 4 of your next 6 to get to 10 wins to get into the playoffs. Next 3 teams I kind of have all bunched together. I have the Oakland Raiders at 17, the Denver Broncos at 16, and the Los Angeles Chargers at 15. They're all kind of around the same exact record, and at this point, I think they're all definitely below Kansas City if I would rank the teams. So obviously at that point, they're all going to really try to fight for even maybe just one wild card spot at this point. Number 14, I was the Vikings, up one spot there, even though they lost. They lost to a very good 49ers team who have been hot as of late. Again, they still have a realistic chance of making the playoffs. If you're Minnesota, they've had, I think I saw a stat, 9 or 10 of their games have been decided by one possession or less. So obviously, if you're Minnesota, you just have to start winning a couple more of those games, and you can definitely make the playoffs. Number 13 are those 49ers who, again, 3 or 4 weeks ago, they look like they were like, you look at their record, and they were like 2 or 3 and 5 or something like that, and you're like, man, why are they losing so many games? They're not really injured. They still have a good roster, and over the last 3 weeks, we've kind of seen that play out where they just have a very good, talented roster from top to bottom on offense and defense, and they're starting to get some victories and against some good quality teams as well. And number 12, just down 2 spots, is the Indianapolis Colts. Again, they've been playing so hot as of late. They really played a very good game against the Tampa Bay Bucks. Obviously, just give the Bucks some credit. They were able to fight back in the second half and put up 38 points against a good Colts defense. Very much need a win for Tampa. You're still trying to get the 1 seed if you're the Bucks, which you still have a realistic shot at that. For the Colts, obviously, the loss is not great. Keeps you in that fighting mentality to try to just scratch and claw to get into the playoffs. At number 11, I'm going to have the Baltimore Ravens. I understand that they have the best record in the AFC, but I just don't think that will last. I think that the wins that they're getting are all very close, narrow victories. And although when you have a guy like Lamar Jackson, he helps you get those close, narrow victories, the team in general is not playing well. And if you look at the Ravens' schedule over the last 6 weeks, they don't play an easy game. They get Pittsburgh twice, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Green Bay. They have literally every single game on their schedule is a tough game that you could see them win, but you could also see them lose. And at that point, if they were to go 3-3 or even 4-2 over the next 6 weeks, that's probably not going to be good enough to be a top 2 or 3 seed. Number 10, down another spot, is the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, I'm very hard on my own team. I still wanted to rank them inside the top 10. I still think they deserve to be there. If you look at their scoring differential, they still are in that top 6 or 7, I believe. Obviously, 2 losses in a row and 3 of 4 obviously means you're not playing well. Again, you're without now Amari Cooper for the last 2 games, which is a huge loss, and you were without CeeDee Lamb for the second half of the Kansas City game and the entire game for Oakland, or Las Vegas, excuse me. But the fact that you were able to put up 30-plus points against the Las Vegas Raiders, just really means Derek Carr obviously had a very good game. A lot of penalties in that game, but if the defense had made a stop or 2, you would have been able to win that ball game. Number 9, the Cincinnati Bengals. After a mild losing streak in the midway point of the season, again, they started the season, I think, 4-1, 5-2, or something like that. They were really high on everyone's power rankings. Then they dropped down over a 3-4 week stretch, and now they've risen a lot up. If you're Cincinnati, obviously this is a huge win last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. You really want to try to win, obviously, against anyone in your division, because if you look at that whole division, every team is fighting for a playoff spot. And at that point, if you can get some wins in your division, you may have the tiebreakers over some teams come wild card time. Number 8, the lowest I've had them all season, is the Los Angeles Rams. Although I still think that they are probably the most talented team in the NFC, I do think that obviously Stafford has not played as well as he played the first 6-7 weeks of the season. And also when you just look at the schedule, they've lost a lot of games to some good teams. And again, if you get into the postseason, you're going to have to beat some good teams. That's the reason why I have them so low. And again, losing as many games as they have in a row, they have to start getting back to playing some good football. Number 7, the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, if you're them, they're peaking kind of at a good time, where a lot of teams in the AFC specifically, really just the NFL, I guess, they're losing some games that maybe you thought that they shouldn't lose, which is now giving Kansas City a chance, and a realistic one, at the number 1 seed. Number 6, we're going to go with the Tennessee Titans. I'm not really going to overreact to the loss of the New England Patriots. You play without both your starting receivers and your starting running back. Probably 3 of your top 5 best players, I think, if you were going to rank the players on their roster. So to play without 3 of your top 5 guys and still be in that game. I know the final score doesn't look like they were in it, but in the third quarter, I believe it was like a 4 or 5 point ball game. You just hope Julio comes back in a week or so, and AJ Brown, maybe he'll be able to come back in 2 or 3 weeks as well. And then with Derrick Henry, if he can come back in 5 or 6 weeks come postseason time, again, this is going to be a very scary team, I still think. Number 5, this is the lowest I've had this team as well in the entire power rankings. So we're going to have the Buffalo Bills at 5. Again, I know they got a huge win against the New Orleans Saints on the road, but you're playing without Alvin Kamara, so it's really like not, the Saints as a team is not really a great team, and they got some injuries now. So not really as much of an impressive win. And again, when you look at the Buffalo Bills schedule, really haven't beaten a good team since Kansas City. So obviously over the next couple weeks, they have some very tough games. You're going to get New England twice. They also, I believe, they get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well. So we're going to learn a lot about the Buffalo Bills over the next 3 weeks. I think the next 3 weeks are New England, Tampa, New England. So obviously in the next 3 weeks, you get 2 teams that I have both ranked ahead in these power rankings. And we'll get to one of those teams. At number 4 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, huge win against Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, they didn't play well in the first half. Offensively, they got down pretty big, but they were able to rally in that second half, and they scored on 4 of their 5 second half possessions, 3 touchdowns on those 4 scores. And obviously, as we come close to the end of the season, they have a realistic chance to get that bye week. Again, if Kyler Murray doesn't come back after this bye, they may, with Arizona, and they lose a game or 2, it's going to give Tampa and Green Bay that chance and that opportunity to try to catch them for the 1 seed. At number 3, the highest they've been all season is the New England Patriots. Obviously, if you look at the scoring differential, they are number 1 in the entire NFL. The only team that's close to them is Buffalo. They're about 2 points, I think, below. And then you look at the next team, I think is Arizona at like plus 110. So they're like 30 points below. So New England is playing as well as any team in the entire NFL. That defense is the number 1 defense scoring-wise in the NFL. So that obviously is going to help a young rookie quarterback and an offense that kind of just, I wouldn't say struggles, but they definitely don't have as many explosive plays that they could have. But when you have an elite defense, it works, right? You're able to just dink and dunk down the field and use that great offensive line and that good running game to kind of just make it easier for the pass game and make it easier for Mac Jones. But the way that they're winning, the formula they're winning with, that I can definitely see them winning a playoff game or 2. Again, when you get into a postseason game in the cold and you have that great defense and you're able to run the ball and your quarterback doesn't turn the ball over, again, as long as you're in games and you're not getting out and you're not getting blown out, Mac Jones is a good enough and capable enough quarterback to make some throws. Top 2, they haven't really changed in the last 2 weeks. At number 2, I'm still going to have is the Arizona Cardinals. Again, they had a bye week this week, so not much to talk about. And number 1, I'm still going to have Green Bay. Their defense is playing, I think, a lot better than people realize they're playing. And obviously with Aaron Rodgers kind of back to normal form now, they are the scariest team, I think, in the NFL because their defense is able to get some stops, as you saw with the Rams game last week. They got some stops, and they also got some turnovers against a very good, high explosive offense. And we know that their offense is one of the best in the NFL. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is the key factor to all this. Because if you look at a team like I think the top 2 most talented teams are maybe Buffalo and then Buffalo and the Rams, right? You look at a team like the Rams, I think the tiebreaker, and you saw it this Sunday, was the fact that Aaron Rodgers is just not going to make any mistakes. And Matthew Stafford, if he makes a mistake or 2, it could cost him a ball game. So that's going to do it for the Week 13 Power Rankings. Thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to next week. Again, if you made it this far, make sure to leave a like on the video and also subscribe if you haven't, as both of those do help the channel out a lot. Thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to next week. Bye.